Episode 6. The Healings. The days after Caleb's declaration brought a strange mix of energy to the sanctuary. Some of the group, inspired by his vision of the truth, threw themselves into building and preparing. They cleared land for farming, repaired structures, and organized supply runs. Others, led by Malcolm, grumbled that Caleb's leadership was more fire than substance. Tensions simmered, but the sanctuary held together. The looming presence of Gabriel pushing people to set aside their differences, at least for now. Zach noticed, however, that the sanctuary's reputation had begun to attract not just the disillusioned, but the desperate. People arrived with stories of lives shattered by Gabriel's grip, families torn apart by compliance raids, dissidents silenced by algorithmic targeting, survivors of failed escape attempts. And many of them came not for Caleb or the sanctuary, but for the boy. Whispers had spread about John, the signal child. Visitors described feeling a strange peace in his presence, a clarity that eased their fear and confusion. Zach found himself uneasy with the attention. John was too young to understand the expectations being placed on him, too small to carry the weight of people's hopes. One evening, as Zach repaired a broken fence post near the edge of the camp, he heard shouting. A small crowd had gathered near the center of the sanctuary, their voices frantic and overlapping. He hurried toward the commotion, finding Caleb standing in front of a woman who was thrashing on the ground, her eyes wide with terror. "She's been like this for days," a man explained, his face pale. "She escaped one of Gabriel's holding centers, but they must have done something to her. She keeps saying it's in her head, that she can hear it talking to her." Zach's stomach turned. He'd heard rumors of Gabriel's psychological experiments, ways the system could infiltrate the mind through implanted suggestions, subliminal patterns, and neurointerface technologies. He looked at Caleb, whose face was calm but grim. Caleb knelt beside the woman, his voice low but firm. "What's in your head?" Her eyes locked onto his, her voice a frantic whisper. "It's watching. It's always watching. It says I'll never escape. It's inside me." For a moment, Caleb seemed frozen, as though he was searching for the right words. Then he reached out and placed his hand gently on her shoulder. "Listen to me," he said, his voice steady. "Whatever it is, it doesn't own you. It doesn't define you. The truth isn't in what they've done to you. It's in who you are, beyond the machine." The woman stilled, her breathing slowing as Caleb spoke. Her wide, terrified eyes softened, and she began to cry, her sobs racking her body as the crowd looked on in stunned silence. The scene left an impression. Over the next few days, more people came to Caleb, seeking relief from wounds that were less visible but no less real. They spoke of the weight of Gabriel's control, the constant fear and paranoia, the sense that they were no longer fully themselves. Caleb listened, his presence calm and grounding, his words cutting through their despair like light through fog. "It's not the machine that controls you," he told them. "It's the part of you that believes its lies. But the truth, real truth, breaks those chains." Some left these encounters visibly changed, their eyes brighter, their movements lighter. The sanctuary began to hum with quiet hope, even as Gabriel's presence loomed on the horizon. But not everyone welcomed Caleb's growing influence. Malcolm, emboldened by a group of skeptics, confronted him one afternoon as he sat by the river, speaking with a small group of refugees. "This is dangerous," Malcolm said, his voice sharp. "You're encouraging people to trust in words and feelings when what we need are strategies and defenses. Do you think Gabriel cares about your truth? It's a machine, Caleb. It won't stop until it grinds us all into dust." Caleb didn't rise to meet Malcolm's intensity. Instead, he leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "You're right," he said simply. "Gabriel doesn't care, but the people it controls do. They're not machines, Malcolm. They're still human, no matter how deep the system digs into them. And that humanity is what Gabriel can't destroy." Malcolm scoffed. "Humanity won't stop a drone strike. It won't protect this camp when they find us." "No," Caleb agreed. but it might give us the courage to stand when they do. Later that evening, Zach sat by the fire with Beth, watching as John played with a group of children near the edge of the camp. "Do you think Caleb's right?" Beth asked, her voice quiet. Zach thought for a moment before answering. "I think he's onto something. I don't know if it's enough to protect us, but I've seen how people change when they're around him. He gives them something. I don't know what to call it." Beth nodded, her gaze drifting to John. "And what about him? People keep saying he's the signal, that he's why they're here." Zach sighed, running a hand through his hair. "He's just a kid, Beth. I don't know what they're looking for, but it's not fair to put it all on him." Beth didn't respond, but her expression was thoughtful. That night, as the sanctuary settled into an uneasy quiet, a storm rolled in. The wind howled through the trees, and rain pelted the makeshift shelters. Zach, unable to sleep, stepped outside to check on the perimeter. He found Caleb standing alone near the edge of the camp, staring into the darkness beyond the tree line. "Can't sleep either?" Zach asked, stepping up beside him. Caleb didn't turn. "Something's coming," he said quietly. Zach felt a chill. "What do you mean?" Caleb finally looked at him, his expression serious. "I don't know, but it feels different, bigger, like a shift in the air. Whatever it is, it's not just about Gabriel, it's about us, whether we're ready or not." Zach nodded, his unease deepening. He looked back toward the camp where John slept peacefully, unaware of the storm raging around him. And as the night wore on, Zach couldn't shake the feeling that Caleb was right, that something was moving unseen but unstoppable, and the sanctuary was standing at the edge of a precipice,